We have the famous Idaho Potato Bowl, like we do every December. And we got Utah State versus Washington State, a matchup that I'm pretty excited about. I think you're seeing that dichotomy of playing styles here. Utah State, really nice offensive season from them. Bronco Mendenhall coming in there in Utah State year one, finding a way to get to a bowl game, having their quarterbacks playing really well. Once again, seemingly hiring the right offensive coordinator. How many years in a row is Bronco Mendenhall going to do that? Seems like everyone. And then Washington State on the other side there, Jimmy Rogers is there for only 1 year before getting hired away to Iowa State. He will not be the head coach in this game. They will have an interim coach. In comes Kirby Moore from Missouri, will be the next head coach. But we got Jesse Bobbitt, I believe, will be the interim coach in this game. Strong defense from Washington State. Probably their best defense since, what was it, that 2022 Washington State defense, which is one of the more prolific defenses from them in recent memory, at least as long as I've been watching Washington State football. This year's defense was awesome. And it doesn't even matter, too, about the schedule. You look at some of the teams that they played, and they just made them look bad. And they made teams look bad, even when going on the road. They went on the road to Ole Miss. They went on the road to James Madison, and they made those teams look bad. And they gave themselves a chance late in those.
Yeah, I mean, it sucks. Here we are for the second straight offseason looking for a new coach, as Washington State is. Excited to see what Kirby Moore. We will get into that, I'm sure, or we definitely will. Come the offseason, we'll do all of our coaching hires and grades and previews, everything you need to know, deep dives into all of that. But yeah, Jesse Bobbitt, hats off to him, what he accomplished this year as defense coordinator in his first year. He's been with Jimmy Rogers since he was at South Dakota State. So obviously he will be heading over to Iowa State. But before he does that, and the rest of the coaches that are leaving, they will be coaching, in Idaho this year. Not too far a drive for either of these two schools, right? West Coast teams, which is interesting. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, these are two Pac-12 teams that we're going to be seeing, right? So that's a future conference implications there, which is really intriguing. If you look at both of these teams' schedules, now, yes, they're both 6-6. It's probably, I would argue Washington State's losses are arguably better than Utah State's. But the reality is, they didn't have any just duds of games where you just were like, yeah, they didn't show up and they lost to teams that they shouldn't have lost to. I mean, the worst loss that Utah State probably has is that Boise one, right, where they could have won, right, at the end there with a back quarterback that Boise had. And then Hawaii, but that's also on the road across the sea. That's a tough place to play. That gets everyone in Mountain West. And that's also an 8-win Hawaii team as well. So hats off to Mendenhall, like you said. It's a really interesting matchup here. The line is 1.5. Utah State. I'm kind of leaning toward Washington State here. I'll just take it right now. Washington State plus 1.5. Excited about Zevi Ekes. Excited about those guys. Meredith, Tony Freeman. I think they'll be able to put up enough points. And then defensively, they're going to have their hands full. That you talked about how good this defense is. Parker McKenna, Isaac Terrell, 7 sacks on the year. Caleb Franksy has been everywhere. But they are going to have a pretty tough time stopping this Bryson Barnes-led offense. And I know if you have been a college football fan for a couple years now, you recognize that name, and it's oh, Bryson Barnes, the kid from Utah that was terrible when what's his name got hurt all those times and yada 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 at Utah. But he has reinvented himself here at Utah State. He is second team All Mountain West. He has been dang good. I believe this is his last start, so last chance for Bryson Barnes to kind of staple himself into a heck of a career he has had here, especially in the Mountain West. 2,600 yards, 18 touchdowns, only 4 interceptions. Now, he has taken 37 sacks. That is something that is a little bit concerning with a pretty aggressive defense here led by Jesse Bobbitt. But he is also their leading rusher as well. Bryson Barnes, 733 yards as well on the ground, 9 more touchdowns. He's been fantastic. Oh, no, the mute button got him. Oh, no. That's the first time.
Devastating.
Dude.
I know. I'm usually pretty good about that, and I'm in and out of there. On the defensive side of the football, you look at, some of these metrics for Utah State, and you're not exactly enthralled by them. And we're not going to point at Washington State like there's some super high-powered offense either. But there's some serious key players in this game, for Utah State, guys that are legitimate game changers. I don't think a lot of people got to see enough of Ike Larson this year. He had a 6-game suspension that he was serving. Believe he should be playing in this one. That's a guy who's a legitimate game changer. That's a guy who Bronco Mendenhall and staff was extremely excited about in that secondary. From being all conference player, a year ago, had battled some injuries, I believe, last year as well. But just like being back and having him play full time, I'm sure he was all Mountain West honorable mention. But that's a guy that's really like probably at the top of that conference in terms of like legitimate talent and potential future outside of Utah State for him. And then John Miller, Noah Avinger, absolute studs on the defensive side of the football. So if you have your playmakers making big time plays in this one, we're not going to sit here and talk about like these quarterbacks from Washington State are exceptional at taking care of the football. There have been some key interceptions in some key games that have led to losses. And if Utah State's able to capitalize on that and find and generate negative plays, whether it's this pass rush that they get or that secondary that I happen to think is pretty good in terms of some of their ball skills and stuff, a lot of coverage breakdowns that we don't want to see necessarily. But I don't know that Washington State's going to be able to capitalize on that. However, I am with you, though. I will take Washington State plus 1.5. I think the biggest reason for me is like in a close game. I know Washington State has been on the losing end of a lot of them. I think I would rather take like rather like an upper echelon defense than like a pretty good offense in this scenario. And I think that Utah State's defense, especially like this run defense, and so, like they are susceptible to the explosive play. Like I just talked about a lot of their star players, and if those star players make big plays, they're going to absolutely be in this one and have a chance to win it. I'm just not in the belief that they're going to completely shut down Washington State. I'm not sure that their offense, even with Bryson Barnes at the helm having a really solid year, they're not going to have their leading receiver, I believe, Braden Pagan. I believe he's not playing.
Yeah, that's brutal. He's a damn good player.
Yeah, and look, they got a solid receiving core and the running back core there as well. Javen Jacobs, Miles Davis, very good players in their own right. Brady Boyd's a solid player as well, 600 yards, 7 touchdowns. I like what I've seen from him, but Braden Pagan's definitely like a difference maker in this one. I think his absence will definitely be felt in this one. So I'm on Washington State here with you. In fact, I will make it a best bet of mine. I believe we're 1-0 as far as I can tell in this postseason so far on my best bets. So let's keep the streak alive, man. Let's go. Washington State plus 1.5 is going to be best bet for me.
Yeah, I don't hate that here. Brady Boyd's an interesting guy from Utah State. This guy I haven't had my eye on for a long time, all the way since he was back at South Lake Carroll with Quinn Ewers, teammates with him. He was obviously at Minnesota, Texas Tech, bounced around a little bit, but he's found a nice home for himself here. It'll be interesting to see what they use with Anthony Garcia. I know he's a little bit more fun playmaker than they do have. So
he's awesome.
Yeah, so they'll have some fun things, I think, wrinkled up. Bronco Mendenhall, you talked about how well he staffs his team, and they'll be ready to play. This will be a bounce-back opportunity, I think, for Zevi Eckhouse as well. I think he has struggled a little bit this year, more than I expected him to. I know the talent around him may not be as strong as you've had in years past.
Well, he didn't, last year. He didn't start for them either to start the season, which is after the performance in the bowl game last year against Syracuse. I was pretty all in on Eckhouse being the guy.
That's what I was pulling up too. It's just interesting how much things have changed since him. He had 360 yards, 3 touchdowns. He has 2 interceptions that cost them, but they also gave up a lot of yards, almost over 600 yards to that Syracuse team, which was a really good offense. That was a 10-win Syracuse team.
There was also they had no one left on that roster.
You had no coaching staffs. It was a rough time there for the Cougs. So I do expect a better output here in Boise. I like Washington State as well, like you said.
Yeah, and despite only playing in 10 games, when your quarterback only plays in 10 games and he's leading the conference in interceptions, it's not always great. And I do worry with my best bet that like you have some of these turnovers. You let Ike Taylor. I don't think Ike Taylor's forced a turnover yet this year.
No,
sorry, Ike Larson. Ike Larson is what I meant to say, but I don't think he's forced a turnover yet this year. Could be his moment in this one. Avinger, obviously, ball hawk, just absolute nose for the football. But I still like this Washington State play, man. And I do think like watching them all season long, they're just way better than their record shows. And I'll say the same thing about Utah State as well. Like, dude, that UNLV overtime game, they absolutely could have won. You mentioned the Boise State game, like. Those games go in their way. You're looking at a completely new outlook in terms of the Mountain West standings, and Utah State is legitimately in the mix. And of course, a lot of that is Bryson Barnes. A lot of that is just really good coaching. And but I just like Washington State here, man. I don't know. I can't help it. I can't help it. I would not be upset if Utah State won this game, though. I love Bronco Mendenhall. Love everything that he's done. One thing that I'm a little bit surprised about is that the defenses that he's had, I know like the personnel isn't exactly what he's dreamed it up to be, but the defenses when he was at New Mexico and the defense at Utah State here, like really hasn't been carrying its weight the way that I imagined it being. With that classic Rocky Long 3-3-5 that Bronco Mendenhall and staff love to run there. But I'm it'll come. It'll come. As long as he stays there in that program for multiple years. But give me Washington State plus 1.5.